Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to a very special podcast I put together with Greg from Storylance, with the subject being the making of Talawanda. And I think a lot of you have seen the film already and may have been wondering about what went on behind the scenes to create the film. And what this podcast will do is reveal a lot of those things. And if you don't really learn anything, at the very least, perhaps we can entertain you. So thank you for watching. And thank you, Greg, for being part of this podcast as well.
Thank
For
you.
those, you're very welcome. For those that don't know me, my name is Christopher Anatra. Previously, I had a channel on YouTube called Quantum Businessman. I still have that channel. And that was really all about Mandela effects and soft disclosure in movies and television series and how that relates to the reality and really what this place is, this holographic dream reality that we're experiencing right now, this illusion, so to speak. So that tells you a little bit about me. As we go on, you'll be learning more about me and about Greg. But Greg, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, my name is Gregory Melanson. And yes, Chris mentioned I have a company called Storylance where I help businesses with storytelling in all different ways. But mostly that has shifted towards cinema. And that's really what my passion is and what I would consider myself more than an entrepreneur as a filmmaker. So I've been working towards making lots of different kinds of films over the last many years, music videos and short films back. I'm from the East Coast of Canada, so I was doing short films out there. It's where I got my start, and then moved to Vancouver, British Columbia in 2011, and then just slowly worked towards certain things. Worked at the film school, and then in 2019 started my business Storylance, which really also coincided with really my spiritual journey as well, where storytelling has become really integrated in how I see the world and how I communicate and how I guide businesses and how I understand the spiritual nature of the universe. And then I feel cinema is the highest expression of that, because you're just combining so many different um, uh, visual and sensory elements to transmit a signal, where the receiver has really put their logic mind away and can truly receive the message at a heart level. So that's what I feel the power of cinema is. So, um, you know, Talawanda arrived at a really good time that allowed me to really experiment in a big way with how we can, especially with AI, like, can you create emotional experiences cinematically with AI? And I feel, we've done that uh, pretty well with this film. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you notice my Talawanda movie poster
Oh yeah.
background?
That's amazing. You did such an awesome job on that, by the way. Like, I think that's just when I see that it's done well on YouTube, I'm like, I think that poster is half of it that's brought in the cold audience because it's just so kind of powerful, the way you've shifted the colors and such, and it's great.
Yeah, so this is really a great team effort. And it's evolving. And a little while into this conversation, we're going to be talking about the next project that we've started on already about the moon. But right now, at the beginning, we're going to focus on Talawanda. But I wanted to let everyone know a little bit of history about us and about where we met. So I met Greg, or you prefer to be called Gregory. What's better?
You can say Greg,
Okay.
Gregory professionally, but like just like I call you Chris as well. Like, I think that's okay.
Yeah, because sometimes people are like, do you prefer Chris or Christopher? I'm like, you could just say Chris, it's faster.
Yeah, exactly.
But I met Greg in Ibiza, and we were at a spiritual type gathering. And Greg, I think you were getting B-roll to create an interviews.
Yeah, I was filming at that event, and actually, the film that got our conversation going again that I made for Mass was filmed partially at that on in Ibiza during that time. Yeah, so I was filming at the event as well. Yes.
Yeah, and I think you interviewed me as well when I was there. Um, I'm
Oh
pretty sure you
yeah.
did. You may not remember. You may have dropped that out of the movie part, but I do remember talking with the camera there. But in any event, it's all
hmm
good. But what's interesting about that is that the person that led the conference, his first name was Mas, M-A-S, and in Sanskrit, that means moon. So, like the Oversoul does interesting things, and there's constant synchronicities about what we can find in our lives. And then when I was like contemplating that recently, I'm like, that makes sense why we would eventually get into this That's No Moon project. And
Yeah.
Talawanda was really the stepping stone into that.
hmm Yeah.
So the first thing I want to talk to you about is um, AI, because I think there's a lot of confusion about AI and most importantly, how you use it, how I use it as well. And I can give some examples, but I'll just mention one thing. There's a lot of people that still think that the story Talawanda, which is from the book The Enlightenment by D. Allen Holmes, is somehow an AI generated book. And it's not. And what I'll do is I'll drop a link to the PDF, the actual scanned PDF, so people can see how it was published in 1982 by D. Allen Holmes, et cetera. And they could, see all the history with that. So I wanted to ask you, like, what's your opinion about using AI in these type of creations?
Yeah, I think the way we used it with Talawanda is a really excellent use case. Because essentially what it is an audiobook reading. You read the book verbatim. And I took visualized and put the AI imagery over top of that. I can't imagine another way that you could do that, really. It'd be a strange thing to film. And the AI was kind of a perfect opportunity to tell that story and maintain your really powerful transmission of the text, which was such an important part of the emotion and the message getting across. Like, a lot of people wanted obviously voices, actors in there. And I'm like, no, like, this is something only AI could do. I'll say that. So, and I feel that as well with the Moon Project. That said, I do understand the argument of people in cinema having a fear around AI and utilizing AI to just kind of do things that are traditionally done with cinema. Um, and I think it's valid. Like when I think of the real film that I'm doing, like the real life one, I'm not thinking about, oh, I could do that with AI, I could do that with AI. No, I want to film it as it's meant to be filmed. Um, and then finding these amazing use cases for AI, I totally respect that process. And I certainly understand that, I'm bringing in my capabilities as a filmmaker and my knowledge as a storyteller and using this tool to transmit these amazing stories in a way that I don't think could be done any other way at this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's a perfect use case for something like this. And I think people, when they watch it, they realize it's AI generated. But
Mm.
everything that you do, like when people like really watch the film and you even go second by second, you could see how the facial expressions change and the eye movements change and the music that you put in the background and the feeling that emits. It really feels like you completely fall into the story. And I think that really resonates with people.
Yeah, my big thing in storytelling is emotion. And even back in university, it's kind of one of those things that you start to recognize later on in life. Oh, that's the thing I've been on about my whole life, and I didn't even quite realize it. But back in university, my final project, thesis project, we'll call it in a multimedia degree, was about how do you create genuine emotion through cinema. because there's a lot of stuff that happens that you could call like kind of cheesy. It makes you kind of cringe, but you know that they're trying to make it emotional, right? So like what went wrong? Why did one thing work and another thing didn't work? That was always what really fascinated me. So I saw Talawanda as a great challenge to say like, could I bring my knowledge on generating emotional experiences through cinema and bring it into this AI, which is, where is the truth really coming from? Honestly, it's coming from your transmission. So as much as I calibrated the visuals to what I felt coming through you, that's where I think it really worked, you know? And but yeah, little eye movements and such, particularly in that final scene where they're in the meadow, more the patch of grass as it's listed in the book, and things kind of get weird. I can show you the amount of generations to get the perfect kind of movement of the eyes and the you feel emotion come on and she starts to cry a little bit and such. You almost have to do your best with AI and then generate over and over until it kind of accidentally gives you the right one. Is kind of where it's at because I'm looking for something very specific and you do enough and suddenly it's there and you're like, okay, that actually fits perfectly with this tiny little moment. And then it's kind of like music. It just has to like rhythmically all feel and make sense. To a point where I can just then let it go and say like, we'll see what the response is. But it's been very I've heard a lot of people talk about tears and such, which is always a joy from my to hear.
When I watch it over and over again,
Yeah.
I get tears. Like I get emotional.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it affects me like everyone else. And there's so many golden nuggets in there too. So in this particular scene you're talking about, I think it really has to do with the concept of eye gazing, because when they were both looking into each other's eyes, and the book says that as well, I believe that Talawanda was transmitting codes to her. And one of the things that I want to explore, perhaps in the near future, is what happened to Elena Taylor, because the story says that at a certain time she just disappeared. She was no longer on this in this physical universe. So what actually happened? And I wanted to go into that a little bit deeper, and the whole concept of perhaps she was able to attain what I call homo luminous, which is very interesting. But I believe that the eye gazing actually gave her activations. And even when other people, like when we as humans come into contact with other people, I believe that we have codes for each other. Maybe it comes to the eyes, maybe it comes to the biophotons that our bodies are emitting, but we're actually upgrading. And these are all things that were kind of planned before we got here. One, one time I got light codes from a cat. So a random cat, like I made eye contact with, and I'm like, I just got eye contact. I just got light codes from that feline. So yeah, and there's so many other points to the Talawanda thing. Like even at the beginning of the film, she's like, I don't know why, but I knew I had to see that performance by Talawanda. So even though she wanted to go, she didn't really want to go out with Walter because, he wasn't Superman, so to speak. She felt that she needed to go and she listened to her intuition. And when that happened, that changed her whole life. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's like golden nugget after golden nugget. And the more times you watch it, there's more things that sink in. And just speaking about myself, well, let me give you a little bit of background. So you're in Vancouver. I'm in my house in Montana. Now, this was probably the beginning of 2025. I was visiting some friends in Montana. One of them, her name was Linda McGillis. Some people might know who she is, and some of her friends. And we're driving around Montana. I had never been here before, and I was just like amazed with the Sapphire Mountains and the lakes and the scenery and everything else that was going on. And in the background, they were playing this story. There was a woman that read the book, and we were listening to the audio.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, I didn't get it at all. Like the first time I listened to it, I'm like, who is this Talawanda person? Like, what is he talking about? And later, when I actually got a hold of the recording myself and started listening, and also I got a hold of the book, I'm like, oh. And then the more I listened to it, the more things kept being revealed. So, just to give everybody a little
Hmm.
bit of background about that. So, I knew it was special, and I knew eventually I was going to be creating something around that that was going to go beyond my quantum businessman type stuff. And that's when I started this new channel called Flame of Therion. And, I chose the name Therion. It could have been anything, Flame of Waldo or something. It's, one of my ancient names, but we all have many names. We all have many different lives all running in parallel right now. But yeah, I wanted this channel to actually have this type of content that spoke to people on another level. And you're helping me tremendously with that. And
Yeah.
the music that I'm putting together too, that has a big influence
Yeah.
on people as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And, I just really admire and honor what it is that you're doing and your work. And it always makes me feel really good. And if I could just talk simply, because there's such a genuine, just uh truthful, clear expression of your poetry, I call it. Anybody that is in the field of spirituality has a certain way of expressing things, and I call it their poetry. And you got to honor that poetry, and it doesn't feel like there's any ego in it. That's why it really feels good to do this, is because it feels you're very much doing this for the right reasons, and you feel that there's an expression that has to come through, and we need to express it in the best way possible. So it makes it really easy for me to kind of dive into these projects and honor that. And that's really what I feel I'm doing, is just honoring what's coming through you. And myself, I don't experience things in the way that other people experience them. And seeing, like you said, light codes and such, it's really just a deep inner knowing, um, of what the right answer is, by feeling it. So I can't move on until I feel that, like, it feels off in my body if it's not the right choice, in a sense. And that's really just my journey in a nutshell. Is kind of a quiet, just, I think, knowing, and understanding. And I have my own beliefs and of how I understand the nature of truth and the nature of the universe. But I always find the way it calibrates with um with whoever it is that I'm interacting with. And that's really my process, I guess.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's almost like before we incarnated onto this particular, in these lifetimes, we may have had a soul contract that we would
Absolutely.
actually be doing this kind of work together. So,
Hmm.
and then soul contracts, that's a whole other topic that I don't think people speak about enough. But at some point too, I want to address that because that's really fascinating. One of those
Yeah.
areas about the way the reality works.
Hmm.
So, what I wanted you to do is like kind of tell for those that are watching this that are kind of on the technical side, tell me
Hmm.
about how you created the Talawanda film.
Yeah, sure. Well, in the beginning, to be honest, like, I was a bit naive and green to the AI stuff. I just knew my capabilities as a filmmaker, and I thought, like, okay, well, if there's an opportunity for me to create stuff from AI, then I can figure this out. And that's what it was. It was a figuring out process. At first, like, I think it took a while to get those first 5 minutes, and then it slowly got kind of more and more, as I learned what process works best and what system works best, because there's a lot of options. They're always moving, they're always updating. Um, so it was a lot of trial and error. Like, I could show you some old generations, and you'll see that, like, oh wow, like, that's not what it looks like at all, because it starts there, and then you have to adjust and adapt and learn, and then the new technology comes out. And I found, sorry, I'm speaking very vaguely, but I did find that, like, when I ran into, like, a block of, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, there was an update release that brought that exact like, the a lot of it was the first 5, maybe even 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so of of the piece didn't really require any of the lip reading. It wasn't until really we got into the stage. So a lot of the learning I did about AI was before we got into Talawanda on stage, where then it became a lot of speaking. Um, and I think the first person who spoke was the the desk person at the theater. Uh, that's the first time I had to do the lip matching. And I was like, oh, okay, here's a new frontier, but there's going to be a lot of this. And then Google ended up being really good for that. Google Veo, it's called. And I used a program called Flow. And what you can do in it is you can take the first image and the last image and then match them up. So the first frame and the last frame.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a real, so I could put Talawanda on the stage in this pose, or it's an image, and then have him in another pose on the stage. And then I write the words that he's going to say. Um, and then he will say them as he walks from the first image to the next image. So that's technically like how that works. A lot of times I would have to speed the image or speed the video up or slow it down because I couldn't match him to your exact uh, reading. I had to write the words and then hope that he got it. I'd say I describe the cadence like speaks in a very calm, measured, but very so I'm directing the the I forget what words I used, but calm, I used measured, but a James Bond like kind of demeanor, as I would say. And AI would understand that. Like, okay, he's going to talk calmly, he's going to talk smoothly, he's not going to be overexcited, he's not going to be sinister or anything like that. And then you eventually find a middle ground of how Talawanda communicates. Um, but even with that, it's iteration after iteration till you find the one that works. And then oftentimes it would be kind of matched up, but then I'd have to speed up the video by 10% or slow it down by 10% in order to match the words. So when you look at, for example, that final scene, like the way it matches up is so like incredible that I watch it back and I'm like, wow, like I can't believe that process went into making that. There's something more going on here for sure.
You knew of love and undying friendship. You had a companion who was loyal and worthy of trust. A companion whose love and integrity could not be eroded by the passage of time.
Um, so yeah, it's a lot of that, and then just a lot of obviously there was creative decisions like what's Talawanda gonna look like, what's Elena gonna look like, and I just trusted really what was coming through and what I felt was right, and I think it was right. And it was a lot of kind of hitting a moving target of trying to get match their faces to the last scene even. And then, I could show you some stuff of you start out and say, okay, they're in the meadow. Now she looks like this, he looks like this. And you use old references, right? And then it gives you something that's totally just not correct. So you just keep working at it and working at it and working at it. And there are moments even in the film where I look and I'm like, that doesn't quite look like Elena like I wanted. But like that final scene, I think is really when I saw Elena in that final scene, I'm like, there she is. This is I finally found her at the very, very end. I'm sure people watching wouldn't notice, but for myself, um, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a bit about the process, but there's a lot more. And yeah, can answer anything specifically, of course.
Yeah. So, like, I'm thinking too about towards the end, that final scene where she's like talking to Talawanda. Talawanda disappears. She starts hearing what sounds like bells. And then all of a sudden it changes and she's back in her bedroom. And the imagery snaps back too. The imagery is more of that, more realistic type thing versus more of the dream imagery from before. And it's like it jolts you, but in a good way.
Hmm.
And then you could really feel her disappointment, like, oh my God, was this just a dream?
Yeah.
If it was just a dream, it was the most elaborate dream that I've ever heard that went on for a very long time.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, perhaps we're dreaming right now. Perhaps this is
Exactly.
all an illusion. So, yeah, so there's so many different things when people watch the film, and probably a lot of people will watch it multiple times, like I have. You'll be able to pull more and more out of it. So,
Hmm.
Google Vivo use something called Nano Banana.
Veo. Yeah, Nano
Oh,
Banana
Vivo.
is VO, yeah, VEO. And Nano Banana is what again only arrived after we started working on this project. Um, is where you get the image consistency. It was the first thing that came along that allowed you to say, like, take this person in this scene and put them at a dinner table, and then it would be the same person. Now there's actually ChatGPT has actually overtaken Nano Banana as the better consistency generator, we'll call it. So ChatGPT is actually, yeah, it's called GPT Image 2, I think. So I use that now. Like for That's No Moon, that's what I've been using. Barely using Veo and I'm barely using Nano Banana right now. I'm using and even for Talawanda, there were other things. I put them in the credits at the end. Like Kling was one that when you really want to get those realistic emotions up close, Kling I think is the best. So for that final scene where Talawanda and Elena are facing each other and is in silence, I found Kling was really effective. Um, and Grok even Elon's. I'm using Grok now. Grok's getting better and better and better. Um, Seed Dance occasionally, although that costs a lot of credits, so you really want to you want to be picky when you have to use Seed Dance. There's one thing I used in Seed Dance, we'll talk about it later, and it worked miraculously, was in the That's No Moon piece when he was walking through the forest and it lit green and they looked up and
Yeah,
the thing went
yeah.
by.
I love that technique.
I put about four images in, like the feet, the shooting star, and him looking up, and described it and said, like, let's see how it works. And it just worked. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah.
No, but the tools are getting tremendously better since when was Talawanda started? September of 2025?
Yes, September 2025,
Yeah,
exactly.
so yeah, so it literally took months and months to do this. A lot of it was like you on the learning curve, but still it takes time. And even with That's No Moon, if you're using a tool like Kling, isn't that like only like 5 or 7 seconds at a time?
No, they have it up to like 15 seconds at a time
Oh,
now.
okay.
And yeah,
That's better.
yeah, and Kling actually is pretty cost effective, which is good. And it still does really good work. Right now, Grok I feel like is the one I go to for my standard stuff. And then Kling is where I use as kind of a backup. And then VO I will still try, but VO's I don't know what's going on with VO, but like it's really struggling right now. I think they haven't done an update in a while, and I guess the way it works is when the system's overloaded, it's not really delivering what I need it to deliver. So that really, really needs an update. So Grok, Kling, occasionally C Dance is kind of what I'm using at the moment. And yes, you for all of them you can go up to like 15 seconds now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That'll make that
Yeah.
Moon at least a little bit easier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, totally. I always find a way, and it's getting better. The technology is getting better. So, with Talawanda, I had to kind of honor the earlier stages of it in a sense. I couldn't shift it so drastically so that it looks suddenly like a totally different film based on how the technology's updated, you know? So I had to, yeah, just kind of balance it a little bit and say like, okay, it started as this. We can improve it for sure, but if I improved it too much, you have to go back and like completely redo the whole thing. So when you're watching Talawanda, you can kind of see, yes, this is an AI film, but there's no hiding that. I'm not really true, and I don't think either of us really intended to um, pretend it was anything other than that.
Yeah, and I was going to say too that when I did the initial narration of the book, I was using the scanned PDF, and like I said, I'll drop that in the description below. But if you want to take a look at that, or any of our viewers takes a look at that, it's actually hard to read. Like the way it's laid out,
Yeah.
it's very 1970-ish, before people were really using typewriters and all that. I mean, they were using typewriters, but not in the traditional sense to make it something easy to read. But I sat down, I read it in one take. So when people like listen to the story, there isn't any like there's zero editing. It's just me reading all the way through it. And I heard the story, so I knew what it was about. So I was able to like fall into the characters. And when I would read when my boys were younger, when I would read them stories, I would always go into like I would always do different voices for the different characters. So if I was reading to them the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears, which is one of those famous Mandela effects, I would, Papa Bear would have his particular voice, and Brother Bear would have his voice, and meanwhile, my boys are saying, "Dad, just read it normal." I'm like, I can't, kids. This is the way I
Yeah.
read. So, and that
Yeah.
came through, and I enjoy doing it. It's just like a
Yeah.
natural part of me.
I think that was, yeah, again, I found your reading extremely effective and powerful. And like I will continue to say, I think, the emotional reaction people have come to with it needed that. Because that's where the truth is really flowing through. Because it is correct that AI just in and of itself with no like the only human part is hitting buttons and such. I'm not so sure that can generate the kind of emotion that Talawanda did, and I think that comes from your transmission of it. And I didn't even realize until I started working through kind of my own Mandela effect in a sense, where I remember listening to it and going, "Okay, I got this in my mind and such." And then once I started working through that final scene, there was so much emotion in your voice that I didn't recall the first time I had read it, like a lot of emotion. And, that just was, again, so effective. And the depth of your voice when you were speaking those final lines from Talawanda was very powerful. So all of that really, really mattered. So yeah, I mean, you and I have seen kind of the biggest criticism has been people saying, "Oh, why is this one male voice reading the whole thing?" Number one, I couldn't imagine another way that it could be done. Like, and number two, like I just said, all the heart and the soul and the emotion is in your transmission of it. So it's certainly unique and different, jarring maybe at first, um, but ultimately it really, really works.
Yeah, I'm actually getting emotional as you're saying that because I'm remembering like Elena's feelings when she woke up back in her bed,
Yeah.
and just the disappointment, and what happened. This is just a dream. Rio, this, all the adventure, the romance.
Rio, the romance, the sights, the sounds, all the glorious adventure, all the miracles. Just a dream that never occurred, just an illusion that doesn't exist.
And yeah, I was really feeling it. This is not acting. This is like I really fell into the character. So I had fun doing it. And I think that when people see the That's No Moon and this awesome sneak peek that you put together, it's going to have that same kind of feeling. And I have
Hmm.
humor throughout there as well.
Yeah.
One of the things I say is that humor is the skeleton key that's able to bypass the mental security guards while they're checking credentials. So basically, when you're having advanced concepts, if you're also making it funny, that helps break down barriers for people to accept it more. So I love putting humor in there when I can. And I think that's all going to come through in the final product when we're all.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a big part of it. And I did my best with the short little sneak peek of a few moments in there that bring and show the humor. But I agree with you. It's a really big part of it. And what you just said about the key, I feel the same way about, real true storytelling. When you can capture people emotionally, they let down the guard, and then you can get the message through. But humor absolutely does the same thing. Lets down the guard, which is necessary. The logic guard, the reason guard.
Yeah, and what I tell people is that like I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I just want them to remember. And that's the whole thing. And you can remember through resonance, you can remember through like, how my voice expresses it. But the whole thing is like anybody could say anything about anything. But if you actually remember something, nobody's going to change your mind and you're going to know the truth of what your reality is. So to me, it's always about tone and it's always about remembrance. Those are like the two biggest things. And in the whole that's no
Mhm.
moon concept. And I love how you brought in the 144,144 because that's a key element to all of this. So when I have part five finally created, and it's not like I press a button and AI creates something for me. It's a long process. I've already
Yeah, I
started a couple of
imagine.
weeks ago. I probably have at least 3 more weeks on it, and it just takes time. And how things come to me is sometimes bizarre, sometimes very interesting. So I'll give you like an example of at least a small part of That's No Moon Part Five, and it has to do with outhouses. So a lot of people may remember that back in the day when we had outhouses, there would be a crescent moon that was carved into the door. And, there was one night, maybe a week or two ago, I was like just thinking and meditating and asking my oversoul like for ideas to talk about. And here in my bathroom here in Montana, I actually and I don't know at the time, I don't know what motivated me to do this, but I have a professional photograph that was taken in the Caribbean, over Cruz Bay in St. John, which is one of the islands there. And it always had the moon on the crescent side, like sideways that we all remember. Well, there was one time a few years ago, and I had that in my hallway at my house in Connecticut, and I'd always walk past it all the time. And there was one day I walked past it, and then the shape of the crescent moon changed to more of that wet moon, where it was more, where you could see the ends of the moon like at an angle. And I'm like, that wasn't like that before. And then I'm thinking to myself, why did I put that? I actually took that photograph from Connecticut and put it in my bathroom. Like, why would I put that in my bathroom? And then I started to make all of these connections about the moon and how it's transformative and how when you use the restroom, you're actually releasing negative things out of your body. And that's a perfect symbolism for how the moon is. It's almost like it's a cosmic joke that they put it on outhouses. So I'm like, okay, this is brilliant. I'm like typing in all my notes about what I'm going to do for this. And then I had an appointment to get my Montana haircut. So I'm leaving. I'm driving down the little road that I live off of, and just before I have to make a turnout. And by the way, it's one of those. It's like a dirt road. There's like nobody there. Like maybe one out of 100 times a car will be there. Just so happens there's like this weird kind of pickup truck, and it's towing an outhouse, and it's right in front of me. And I'm like, all right, universe, you are very interesting, like the synchronicities that you get brought. So I'm like, I'm going to be including that part of it, but it's just how these things start to come at you, including like there's been Mandela effects that's somehow involved the moon. And for those of you that follow Mandela effects, a recent one was about the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and how many of us remember on his birthday, his grandparents, Grandpa Joe and Grandma Josephine, and whatever the other grandparents' names were. I remember them giving him a Wonka bar and hoping that he had the golden ticket inside the Wonka bar. However, now in this timeline, they give him a moon pie. And I'm like, oh man, the moon, it keeps crashing, everything like, and there's all the stuff going on with the moon lately. So, and for those of you that don't know, it was actually early this morning. There was a SpaceX rocket booster or something that crashed into the moon.
Oh,
And yeah, that was SpaceX finally made it to the moon. Not in the way they intended. It had another purpose, but for some reason, it picked up in the orbit of the moon and crashed into the moon. And then earlier today, I saw something else about I'm just reading this. Astronomers spot huge UFOs orbiting the moon.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so it's like the moon keeps trying to photobomb our reality with information about it. So it's definitely trying to get our attention.
Yeah, it's reading the story that That's No Moon, it's about 6 hours of transmission. Like, it's incredible. And to me, again, I'm a bit of a simple guy. Like, I feel my way through things versus sometimes being able to articulate in the way that you can. So I understand it at a visceral level, and I feel it, and I'm like, yeah, in my body saying that, right? And but it's so, we going back through it here really soon. Um, and just yeah, I don't know how you come up with all, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where the idea is, and like it must be such a cool process. I'd love to know where this comes from.
It's crazy. Like the other night after we had the full moon, it was probably around midnight, and for some reason I woke up just out of the blue and like had all of this energy. And then I went into my refrigerator and there happened to be cheese in there. So this is some Italian cheese. And so I'm holding this cheese, looking at the moon and getting a download about the moon and cheese and how in the past it was always like, oh, you're gullible if you think the moon is made out of cheese. Like we've probably heard that story.
Yeah.
But I think with that, there's also, I was getting that that's another cosmic joke because cheese is a product made from milk, and milk comes from the divine feminine. It's like something nurturing, but it has to go through a transformation process. So, and that's what the moon is constantly doing. It's like it has a transformation every day. It's a different phase of the moon, so to speak, and it can change us too as an effect on us because it has effect on the tide and water, and we're mostly water ourselves. So there are all these factors going on. So the creative process is quite bizarre. And,
Yeah.
and I just go with it. And it's sometimes things happen quickly and sometimes, it happens in spurts, but as it does, I just write it down and keep building upon it and going from there.
But it's got a true a logical arc as well, right? Like, it's not all random. It like feels very, and what I love too is that it does come down to the simple truth of us finding our highest, as you said before, timeline in a sense. It still comes down to us uh, breaking through the facade of the illusory reality and finding the truth. The simplicity of this entire cosmological adventure story that you've written still comes back to that, and that's what I love as well. Still comes back to us waking up.
That's what it's all about. But it's all about this whole great awakening process. That's why a lot of us are here. We all have different jobs to do, so to speak. And sometimes it may not be extremely obvious as to what it is. I know a lot of people will ask, what's my purpose? And the way I say it is just let things unfold because your
Yeah.
oversoul is just going to like nudge you in the right direction. It's going to give you the intuitions. It's going to give you
Mhm.
everything you need and just follow that intuition and what feels right will become obvious.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really it. And I think you arrive at that place on the journey, and I certainly have, where it's like, there's no bearer of truth other than my own intuition and my own guidance. And there's a relief in that, I think, and excitement over it's like, okay, if you could put full trust in that into your own path, then well, you can feel kind of excited about, okay, how's it going to unfold? Um, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that are going to be watching the That's No Moon or have read my Substacks,
Yeah.
they may already have their own current thoughts about, for example, the moon landing. So a lot of people are like, it actually happened. A lot of people are like, it was faked. And what I say, it was both. I feel it was like a combination of both. And if you think about the moon, it's actually within Earth's atmosphere. It's actually well within what's called the exosphere. So is it possible that it could be a body that's not natural? And for people to consider, maybe the astronauts landed on something and maybe we weren't told the whole truth. And maybe these types of things are going to be revealed and are being revealed as time goes on. They have to be. And then, so besides what really is the moon, what really is the sun, and how are they both connected to each other? And a lot of these things are like higher frequency concepts, like
Hmm.
I call them 5-dimensional
Yeah.
or higher. And that goes in perfectly with part 5. I'm trying to explain things on a higher frequency to reveal some truths that I don't think anyone else has really brought, forward to audiences before. So I'm trying to go beyond conspiracy theories. I'm going beyond soul trap information and really
Yeah.
trying to get to the bottom of it so we can better understand it. Because as we advance, as we ascend, because Earth is ascending, and we have a choice. We're either going to ascend with her or we're going to be left behind. And I think everyone that's listening to this wants to ascend with Earth. They want their mitochondria to fire. They want to go have that homo luminous, where basically the atoms in your body can hold more light. And we're heading towards that direction. And something that's interesting, I'll just mention, but sometimes when people see like a woman that's pregnant, they'll be like, "Oh my God, she's glowing." And I've seen that too, like they're glowing. And part of the reason is they actually have another being inside of them with their own mitochondria that are igniting. So you got a human with like another human's mitochondria igniting inside of them. And it just makes the whole outside appearance of the avatar start to glow as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, and I hope to be sharing more and more with that. And I want to thank everyone that listens to my information, reads my Substacks, listens to the voiceovers. Sometimes I think the voiceovers are far more important than just actually reading it, although it's cool to scroll through the pictures and all that. So we are on a journey together. And I'm glad to have you on that journey, Greg, with me and everyone else that watches these creations we're working on to really help us, go to this next level.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, Chris. This is awesome conversation, and excited to just dive into what's next. And there's lots on the plate, so it's going to be fun to work through it all.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you're working between everything else you're doing, one of the other things you're working on has to do with the Emerald Sun
Mhm.
meditation. So I had created the song about the Emerald Sun meditation. Actually, I created two songs. And, what is the Emerald Sun? How, what's the importance of that? And if people read my Substacks, it's connected to what I call the green glow over Kona, and how this streak of green appeared for 2 evenings in Kona from the comet Pan-STARRS. We actually went through its tail. And this is not something that was imaginary. It made the local news. Like it was on the news. It was a thing. And that actually was related to igniting people's emerald suns. And then I tell the story about how I was at a gem show in Missoula. Literally, it was on the spring equinox, and there is this certain type of crystal that just got my attention called dioptase, which is a very special green crystal. It's found in copper mines, has a lot of copper involved, so it's highly resonant, electrified. And then I started doing these meditations, watching the sun and holding the dioptase to my chest. And then the sun started to turn green. And I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, it's not green cheese. That it was like green from the emerald sun. So I think what people are going to see probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks is they're going to see,
Yeah,
yeah, your creation of me of that song and the lyrics,
yeah.
and you bringing that to life.
Yeah, that's next up, the Emerald Sun music video, and the imagery that I've come up with it is really beautiful. It makes me like go, wow, this is powerful stuff. So, wherever that came from, but I'm excited to bring it to the to motion. we'll say, because right now it's a lot of images. But yeah, that'll be quick. That'll be soon.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, I don't really have to give you any guidance.
Yeah.
You no, literally, you just get it. You just get it. Maybe
Yeah, well, I
there's
pre
1% here or there. I'm like, oh, what
yeah,
about this? Or his eyes are
yeah.
darker now. They should be blue or whatever. But besides stuff like that, you just like, boop, you're like right on it. Better than I could even explain.
Yeah, I think, we all have I appreciate that. You all have our gifts, right? And I think mine is, in the same with anybody that I work with, I can see and feel, I can feel and sense the truth in you. And I can align with that and then allow the work to flow from that. So generally, yeah, that's my expectation for sure. And it certainly worked out that, and it's allowed me a lot more confidence in the decision making as well, to know that, okay, this is really resonating and such. And so it only kind of builds more momentum in that direction, where we're just kind of, you said it right from the beginning, where the oversoul is, connecting this in a way that's beyond us. So I trust that.
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to say
Yeah.
too, if any of our listeners knows how to reach D. Allen Holmes, who wrote the book The Enlightenment that, we made the whole Talawanda film about, please let me know so I can reach out to him because I would love to know what he thinks of what we did with his work. So, and we're totally giving him total credit for it. The book was written more than 40 years ago.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is like when people look at the PDF, it'll say soon to be a major motion picture.
Yeah.
I don't think that ever happened, but maybe it's
Yeah.
happening now, at least what we've done. Not that it's a major motion picture, but it got
Yeah.
into people's like viewpoint from a cinematic point of view.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and some other things too that I'm just going to mention because I thought they were interesting is that when you look at the PDF, like he dedicates it to people. He dedicates it to Zeus. He dedicates it to Jesus Christ. He dedicates it to Siddhartha Gautama, which I think was the original Buddha. He also dedicates it to L. Ron Hubbard. Now, for those of you that don't know who L. Ron Hubbard is, he was the founder of Scientology. And when people think of Scientology, they think of Tom Cruise and all that. So one of the things I'm like, is this a Scientology book? Like, what's going on with this? And when you compare Talawanda and what was written there to the teachings of Scientology, there's really no connection. I ran it through a couple of different AIs. There were like no comparisons, but that was someone that that was an inspiration for him for whatever reason. And then the other thing he said is with special affection to Richard Bach. Now,
Oh,
yeah, so
yeah.
for those of you that don't know, well, Richard Bach was a famous author because he wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And a lot of people have heard of that book or read that book. But he also wrote this book called Illusions. And this book came out maybe a couple of years before the whole Enlightenment book came out. And so, like, obviously, I just recently got a copy of this book. And as I'm reading it, this is like, it was so familiar. And then I remembered when I was like 14 years old, I went to the local library and I checked this book out. And I remember reading it as a 14-year-old, and a lot of the concepts were rolling by me. But as I'm reading it now, I'm getting it more and more. And you could really see how this book, Illusions by Richard Bach, was definitely an influence for what D. Allen Holmes wrote. And the complete title of the book is Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And then I found out there's a sequel to this book called Illusions 2. And this particular author, Richard Bach, he's still alive. I think he's in his 90s, but he's still alive. It'd be cool to figure out a way to reach out to him, maybe through
Yeah.
Simon and Schuster, because this would make
Yeah.
another awesome type film that explains the reality.
I think so too. I really, I'm only 60 pages into it or so, but I thought it was super, like, already it was visually coming to me in a way that, like, yeah, this would be cool. And I think it would really resonate with people. And I think it would fit with where AI is now as far as the cinematic, the way it's advanced even in the last year.
Yeah, and at the very least, the work that you're doing could even pave the way for a live action movie.
Oh, I'd love that, of course. Like, I'm still working towards getting a live action movie made. And it's funny, mentioned these before that like one of the scripts I'd been writing years ago, and is still kind of in my little ideas box, is about love story across time. And it's a theme that has resonated with me deeply. I don't know why. But then Talawanda comes, and it's a story about love across time and space. There's even a Shakespeare sonnet that's about love across time and space. That was part of my script. Like, I was pulling this stuff in, so it was really a gift to have this project land in my sphere for that reason as well, because thematically, it's such a powerful concept, and I think we took it to a really powerful place with the film.
Yeah, there's even that scene in the film when they're at that cafe where they're overlooking the monument of Christ. And, he explains to her that, I loved you before California even existed. So yeah,
Hmm.
you definitely have this whole concept of an eternal partner that's been patiently waiting, and the whole concept about time. And,
Hmm.
time doesn't, just because the pages of history grow too old and dim to remember, it doesn't actually end these relationships that we've had on the other side.
Hmm. Yeah, and I deeply, deeply resonate with that and believe it. So that certainly helps the process of being able to tell a story like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, I want to thank you for this awesome conversation.
Yeah, you too.
And thank you, everyone that's listened, especially listening to the end. We really appreciate it. And if you like these types of like podcasts, leave your comments, leave your questions. Greg and I will, we'll probably read every comment and try to respond ourselves. So, yeah, let's make this totally interactive. And any advice that you have or any feelings that you're getting, et cetera, please share them. They're very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. This was, again, a super fun conversation to have, and I'm sure we'll have lots more.
Yep, awesome.
Yeah.
Greg, until next time, I know you got some work to do.
Yeah, sure do. Okay.
All right. Again, thank you. And thank you, everyone
Thank
that's
you.
watched.